The spaceport was alive with voices, with traders shouting and buyers calling, with strange creatures moving in every direction. Ships from 100 different worlds had docked here, their hulls shining under the harsh lights, their cargo bays full of goods. The air smelled of oil, of smoke, of spices from alien kitchens, and also of something heavier, something darker. In the center of the market was a raised platform, a place where lives were sold as if they were simple objects. The auctioneer, a tall alien with gray skin and cold eyes, called for attention, his long arms waving toward the stage. He shouted, next lot, a broken one but still breathing, still strong enough to work." The crowd turned their heads, curious, some amused, some already bored, and then she stepped onto the stage. An alien mother, her body marked with scars, her clothing torn and faded, her shoulders trembling with weakness. By her side clung a small child, no more than 5 years old, with wide dark eyes and thin arms. The child held her hand tightly, as if letting go would mean falling into nothingness. The auctioneer laughed, showing sharp teeth. A mother and her child, a package deal, though nobody asked for it. The crowd chuckled, whispers running through the air like insects crawling. "She is broken," someone muttered. "Look at her, not worth the trouble." Another voice said, "The child is too small, no use, a waste of space." The mother heard every word, but she did not lower her head. Her back remained straight, her eyes staring forward, glowing faintly with something unbroken. The auctioneer snapped his fingers. "Who will make an offer? Who will take her? Who will claim this pair for themselves?" Silence answered him. Dozens of traders, hundreds of faces, but not a single voice, not a single hand raised. The silence grew heavier, pressing on the mother like a weight. Resting on the child like a curse. The auctioneer frowned, annoyed. "Come on, she is cheap. She is half the price of a servant droid." Still, no one moved. The crowd began to laugh, their voices sharp and cruel. "Nobody wants her. Nobody cares. Throw her away." The child pressed closer to his mother, hiding his face in her side, shaking from fear. The mother placed her hand gently on his back, whispering softly, "Stay with me. Do not be afraid." But inside, her heart was breaking. She had fought to survive. She had carried her child through storms, through hunger, through war. She had begged for scraps, stolen water, hidden in shadows. And yet here she was, standing like an object in front of strangers. Her pride told her to scream, to fight, to refuse. But her child's trembling hand told her to endure. So she stood in silence, waiting, hoping for a miracle that never came. The auctioneer sighed, his patience fading. "No one, really no one. Then she is worthless, useless, a broken piece of flesh." The crowd clapped mockingly, enjoying her humiliation. The mother's eyes burned, not with tears but with fire. A fire that no whip, no chain, no laughter could destroy. Her gaze moved across the crowd, searching, pleading, daring someone to see her, not as broken, but as alive. In the far corner of the crowd, one figure stood still, not laughing, not whispering, only watching. It was a human, tall, with plain clothes, with calm eyes that did not look away. While others saw a broken alien, he saw something different. He saw a mother, wounded yet unyielding, carrying a child who refused to let go. He remembered his own mother, long ago struggling in silence, fighting in ways no one saw. His heart tightened, his breath grew heavy, as if something inside him was being called. The auctioneer slammed his hand on the podium. Last chance, any offer at all, or she will be discarded." The mother closed her eyes for a moment, whispering a final prayer to stars that had never answered. The child looked up at her, his lips trembling. "Mama." She held him close, her strength fading, but her soul refusing to fall. The silence stretched, the crowd restless, the auctioneer ready to wave them away. But the human did not move, not yet. He only stared, feeling the weight of the choice before him. Would he step forward, or would he let her vanish into nothingness? The air seemed to freeze, the sounds of the market fading, as if the universe itself waited for his decision. And in that silence, in that heavy pause, a story was about to begin, not of slaves and buyers, not of chains and laughter, but of names, of family, of something far stronger than trade. The alien mother did not know it yet, the child did not know it yet, the crowd did not know it yet, but her life was about to change forever. The crowd was still laughing, their voices rising like smoke, but one man did not join them. He stood near the back. A human traveler, dressed in clothes worn from long journeys, his boots covered with dust, his shoulders carrying both weight and calm. His eyes were steady, clear, not like the others, not cruel or mocking, but filled with something different, something the alien mother had not seen in years. Compassion. He did not see a slave, he did not see a broken tool, he did not see a body to use and throw away. He saw a woman, tired but unyielding, carrying scars that told stories of battles no one cared to hear. and beside her, he saw a child, small and fragile, yet holding on with the kind of strength only love could give. The boy's fingers clung to his mother's hand as if the universe might pull her away, and the human felt his heart tighten because long ago he had been that child. He remembered nights on his own world where his mother worked until her hands bled, where she walked miles through storms just to bring food. He remembered sitting in the dark, waiting for her to return, whispering to himself that she would always come back. And she did. No matter how tired, no matter how broken, she always returned. The alien mother's eyes carried the same fire, the same promise, the same unstoppable force. And in that instant, the human knew he was not looking at a stranger, he was looking at a mirror. The auctioneer shouted again, angry now. No buyers, no offers, worthless. The crowd cheered at her humiliation. The human's jaw tightened, but still he did not move. He was not a fool. He knew stepping forward meant more than buying. It meant standing against the way this market worked. Slavery was business here. It was law, it was tradition, and breaking it was dangerous. But his heart whispered louder than his fear. He studied the mother, the way she held her back straight even though her body trembled. He studied the child, the way his eyes darted around, frightened but still full of trust in her. And he wondered, how many nights had she carried the boy through shadows? How many times had she gone hungry so he could eat? He saw more than flesh. He saw sacrifice. He saw devotion. He saw love, the kind of love that could not be bought or sold. The auctioneer's voice cut through the noise, sharp and cruel. Discard her then. Let the scavengers take what they want. The crowd laughed louder. Some even turned away, bored now, ready for the next spectacle. But the human's hand twitched, his heart beating like a drum. He could not turn away, not now, not after seeing her eyes. They were not the eyes of defeat. They were the eyes of someone still fighting. Even when the whole galaxy told her she was finished, he knew those eyes because they were the same eyes he had once seen in his mother. The human's breath slowed, and in the middle of that cruel, noisy place, he felt a silence inside himself. It was the silence before a choice, the silence before a step that could change everything. If he acted, the crowd might laugh at him, the traders might threaten him, the law might mark him as a fool. But if he stayed silent, he would be no better than the rest. His conscience burned like fire, refusing to let him walk away. The alien mother glanced across the crowd, her gaze landing on him for the first time. Her eyes met his, and for a moment time stopped. She saw not pity, but recognition, not judgment, but respect. It startled her, because for years no one had looked at her that way. In his eyes she did not see chains, she saw something she thought was lost. Hope. The child peeked at him too, curious, sensing something different. He did not know this human, did not know his name, but somehow felt less afraid when looking at him. The boy squeezed his mother's hand tighter, whispering something in a language the human could not understand. But he did not need to, he understood the meaning. The child was asking his mother if maybe, just maybe, this man was different. The auctioneer slammed his hand again, frustrated. Enough wasting time, remove her. Guards began to move forward, ready to drag the mother and child away, ready to erase them as if they were nothing. And in that moment, the human finally stepped forward. The crowd's laughter dimmed, surprise rippling through their faces. No one had expected a bid. No one had expected a human to speak, but his voice cut through the air, calm and steady. I will take her. The auctioneer blinked, confused, then smiled with mockery. Ah, finally, you have coin, human. How much will you pay? But the human shook his head, his eyes still fixed on the mother. Not with money. The words fell heavy, echoing in the silence. The crowd murmured, puzzled. Not with money, then what? The human's heart raced, but his voice did not shake. He said, I give her my last name. The market froze. The mother's breath caught. And the child's eyes widened. The crowd gasped in disbelief. Names meant nothing here, but to a human, a last name meant family. It meant blood. It meant protection. It meant belonging. And by offering it, the human was not buying her. He was freeing her, lifting her from the stage of shame and into his life. The auctioneer's jaw dropped, unsure whether to laugh or rage. The mother trembled, her lips parting in shock, because no one, in all her years of suffering, had ever given her something so powerful. Not money, not chains, but a place to belong. The crowd whispered like a storm, the market shook with disbelief, and the story that began with silence was now breaking into something no one had ever seen before. The market had never known silence like this. It was the kind of silence that pressed against the skin, the kind that made hearts beat louder in the chest. Dozens of traders froze in place, hundreds of eyes turned toward the human who had spoken. His words still hung in the air, strange, heavy, impossible. I give her my last name. The auctioneer blinked, his sharp teeth showing as he tried to smile, tried to twist the moment back into laughter. A last name, he mocked. Human nonsense. What is that worth here? You insult the trade with your foolish tongue. But his voice wavered because even he could feel it, the power hidden inside those words. The crowd murmured, whispers spilling over one another. He is mad. He is strange. He does not know our ways. Yet some of them, just a few, whispered differently. What does it mean? Why would a human give such a thing? The alien mother's breath caught in her throat. She had been offered chains before. She had been offered cruelty, but never this. Never something that sounded like honor. She held her child close, her body trembling as if she feared the offer might vanish if she blinked. The boy's eyes widened. Ha! His small voice whispering to her ear, Mama, what did he say? She could not answer because her own heart was thundering too loudly. The human did not step back, did not soften his voice. He spoke again, calm but unyielding. Money buys chains, but a name gives freedom. The auctioneer snarled, Freedom, nonsense. This is a market, not a temple. You pay with coin, not with words. But the human's eyes never left the mother, never left the child. He raised his voice so all could hear. She will not be property. She will be kin. She will carry my name, and no one here will touch her. The words struck the crowd like thunder. Some laughed nervously, unsure if he was joking. Others hissed in anger, because if such an offer were allowed, it could shatter the very foundation of their trade. Names were meaningless to them, but even they felt the weight in his tone, the kind of weight that spoke of vows unbreakable. The mother trembled, her legs weak, but for the first time in years her heart rose higher than her fear. Someone was not just seeing her scars, but her strength, her dignity, her right to exist. The auctioneer tried again, his voice desperate. You cannot do this, you cannot change the rules. What do you offer in coin, human? Say the price or step aside. The human's voice cut him like a blade. I told you the price. My name is the price. My blood is the seal, my honor the bond. Gasps erupted, the crowd shifting uneasily. The guards who had begun to move toward the mother now paused, uncertain, looking back at the auctioneer for guidance. This was not part of the script, not part of the ritual of buying and selling. The child peeked at the human, eyes round with wonder. He did not understand all the words, but he understood enough. This stranger had stood against the laughter, stood against the rules, stood for them. The boy pressed his face into his mother's side, whispering again, Mama, he is not like them. And the mother, though still trembling, could not deny it. No, he was not like Tion. Him at all. The auctioneer's voice broke, louder now, trying to reclaim control. This is madness. This is insult. He mocks the trade. He mocks us all. The human finally turned his gaze to him, steady and unafraid. I mock no one, but I will not leave her to be thrown away. The auctioneer spat. She is broken. The human replied, She is alive. The auctioneer sneered. She is worthless. The human said, She is a mother. The words rang out sharper than any weapon. The crowd fell silent again, because even those who did not care could feel the weight of truth in them. A broken tool may be thrown away, but a mother, a protector, a bearer of life, could never be worthless. The alien mother's knees nearly buckled, but she held her ground, her hand gripping her child's tighter, her eyes filled with light she had thought long lost. For the first time in years, someone had spoken of her not as a burden, but as something sacred. The auctioneer growled, Even if I allow this madness, her status is nothing. The law does not recognize your name. She will still be prey. The human's lips curled in a faint smile. Then let the law come. Let the hunters come. Let all of them come. He stepped forward now, past the line of guards, his presence unshaken, his eyes burning with resolve. She carries my last name, which means she carries me, he said, and I am not so easily broken. The crowd rippled with fear and awe. Some muttered that humans were dangerous, not because of their weapons, but because of this, because of their strange power to give meaning where others saw none. Others hissed that he would bring trouble, that his foolish act would spark fire. But hidden among them, a few hearts stirred, touched by a truth they did not want to admit, that maybe, just maybe, this was not foolishness at all, but something greater. The mother looked at him, her lips trembling. She had no words, no language strong enough to answer such an offer. All she could do was hold her child and stare at this human who had stepped into her darkness carrying light. The boy tugged her hand, whispering, Mama, does this mean we are safe? Her voice shook as she whispered back, I do not know, my son, but for the first time, I believe we might be. And so the silent auction, which began in mockery and cruelty, had turned into something else. The crowd would remember this day not for what was sold, but for what was given. Not coin, not gold, not trade, but a last name, a family, a promise. The story of the broken alien mother was no longer ending in chains. It was beginning again, with hope, with danger, with destiny. And as the human stood before the entire market, unafraid and unbending, the galaxy itself seemed to lean closer, listening, for it knew that this small act, this strange offer, was not the end, it was only the beginning. The market had witnessed many sales, many trades, many cruel jokes, but never something like this. A last name had been offered, not as a coin, not as a contract, but as a gift of belonging. The crowd shifted uneasily, their laughter now gone, replaced by murmurs of confusion and fear. They understood the value of gold, of weapons, of slaves, but this was beyond their measure. For them, a name was only a sound, a tag to call someone by, nothing more. But for a human, a last name was not just sound, it was legacy, it was family, it was shield, and in that shield stood the alien mother and her child, trembling but no longer invisible. The auctioneer's mouth twisted in anger, his pride wounded, his control slipping. "This is foolishness," he spat. "She is nothing, her child is nothing, your name cannot change that." But the human stood tall, his voice steady. "It changes ever. I think because from this moment, she is not alone." The mother's knees trembled, her heart racing. She had been called worthless for so long that her mind struggled to accept these words. Could a name truly change her fate? Could a stranger's promise rewrite the story of her suffering? The child looked up at the human, small voice shaking. "What does it mean, sir?" The human knelt slightly, lowering his eyes to meet the boy's. "It means you are not to be thrown away. It means you belong. It means you are family now." The boy blinked, confused but comforted, pressing closer to his mother. And in her chest, something fragile, something buried under years of pain, began to stir again. Hope. The guards shifted, glancing at the auctioneer for orders. But even they hesitated, for though they did not value names, they could sense the weight behind this one. It was not just a sound, it was a vow, and vows had power. The auctioneer growled, "This is not trade, this is rebellion. You dare to challenge the laws of this market." The human's voice was calm, but his eyes burned like fire. "I do not challenge trade, I challenge cruelty, and I will not step aside." The crowd's whispers grew louder, some mocking, some curious, some fearful. One alien muttered, "Humans are dangerous, they give meaning where there should be none." Another hissed, "If this is allowed, no slave will stay in chains, they will all beg for names." But in the back of the crowd, a few eyes softened, touched by something they could not explain, because even those who lived by cruelty could not completely ignore the sight of a man giving honor instead of chains. The mother swallowed hard, her voice breaking as she finally spoke. "Why?" she asked, her words trembling. "Why give me your name? You do not know me. You owe me nothing." The human looked at her, and for a moment his face softened. "Because once, someone gave me hope when I had none, and I will not let that gift die with me." The mother's chest tightened, her eyes burning. Her son looked up at her, whispering, "Mama, he is not lying." She squeezed his hand, unable to answer, because her voice would fail her if she tried. The auctioneer slammed his fist on the podium. "Enough, enough of this madness. She is not yours. No law binds her to you." The human's voice rose, echoing across the market. "Then hear me, all of you, from this day forward. She carries my last name, and no law, no chain, no cruelty will strip it away." The sound rolled across the room like thunder. The crowd gasped. Some sneered, others fell into uneasy silence. The guards stepped back, unwilling to move against such certainty. For deep inside, even they feared a man who spoke with such unshakable resolve. The mother's hands trembled as she touched her child's head. She whispered in her own tongue, words of blessing, words of protection, words she thought she would never speak again. The boy smiled faintly, his small fingers gripping her tighter. For the first time since his birth, he felt like he was more than a burden, more than a shadow. He was family, and even if he did not fully understand, he felt safer than he had ever felt before. The auctioneer tried one last time, his voice shrill with anger. "If you take her, you will be hunted, you will be cast out, you will regret this." But the human did not flinch, his voice calm. "I have faced worse than hunters. I will face them again, but she will not face them alone." The mother's eyes filled with tears, not of weakness, but of something fierce. She had been broken, yes, but now a hand had reached into her ashes and pulled her back to life. Her heart whispered to her, perhaps for the first time, that she and her child were not lost, they had been found. The crowd began to scatter, some muttering, some shaking their heads, some too afraid to watch what might come next. But all of them would remember. They would remember the day a human gave a slave no chains, but a last name. They would remember the moment when cruelty was met, not with violence, but with defiance wrapped in love, and they would whisper about it in shadows, fearing and wondering if this one act might spread, for if names could break chains, then no market, no master, no law would ever be safe again. The human extended his hand toward the mother, not to command her, but to invite her. Slowly, trembling, she placed her hand in his, and in that simple touch, the bond was sealed. No chains clinked, no contracts burned, only two lives joining together, carrying a promise no one could undo. The child looked between them, his heart swelling with a strange, powerful joy. He whispered, "Mama, we have a name now." And the mother, her voice breaking but strong, answered, "Yes, my son, we do." The market that had once mocked her now faded into the background, for in that moment she was no longer broken, no longer discarded, no longer alone. She was a mother, she was family, and she was alive. And though danger waited outside, though hunters might rise, though the galaxy itself might turn against them, her story had already changed because one human, against all reason, had given her something greater than chains. He had given her a name. The market was not the same after the words were spoken. The air that once rang with cruel laughter now carried unease. The merchants who prided themselves on power and wealth now stood stiff, unsure if they had just witnessed a foolish act or the beginning of something dangerous. For a human had given no coin, no contract, but a name, and in that single vow he had turned a slave and, oh, family. The alien mother still held her child close, her heart beating so loudly it echoed in her ears. She felt weak, trembling, yet inside her something had changed. She was not invisible anymore, she was not discarded. For the first time in so long she felt seen. The boy clung to her, his small voice whispering again and again, "We have a name, Mama, we have a name." And those words filled her with strength she thought was gone. But while hope grew in their hearts, fear and anger stirred in others. The auctioneer's face was pale with rage, his pride broken in front of the crowd. His voice cracked as he shouted, "This is treason to the market. This human thinks he can mock our ways. Will none of you answer?" But the crowd did not roar as before. Instead, they muttered quietly, their voices low, their eyes darting to the human, to the mother, to the child. Something unsettled them, something they could not explain, for they had all seen chains broken, but never like this, never by something so simple as a name. Among the crowd, whispers began to spread like fire carried by wind. If a name can protect her, what stops others from asking for the same? What if more humans do this? What if families cannot be bought or sold anymore? The auctioneer heard the whispers, and his fury deepened, because he understood the danger better than most. Markets lived on fear, on silence, on the belief that chains could never be broken. But if this act spread, if others began to believe in names, then the chains would lose their strength. The human stood calm, though his heart raced. He knew eyes burned into him, some with hatred, some with awe, some with fear. But he did not step back. He did not bow. He simply stayed where he was, steady as a mountain, because in his soul, he knew he had made the right choice, and no force in this market would make him undo it. The guards hesitated, their weapons heavy in their hands, waiting for orders. The auctioneer shouted at them, "Seize her, seize him before this poison spreads." But the guards did know to move not right away, for they too had felt the weight of his vow, and though they were trained to follow commands, their instincts whispered caution, because some battles were fought not with blades but with meaning, and meaning could be far more dangerous. The mother watched them all, her hand gripping her son's tightly, her voice low but strong as she whispered in her tongue, "Do not fear, my child. We are not shadows anymore." The boy smiled faintly, his fear softening, his trust growing, and when the human glanced at them, they both nodded, as if 3 lives had already been bound together. The auctioneer, desperate to reclaim control, tried to laugh, though the sound was hollow. "Look at this, a fool with words. He thinks his name can fight our laws, but words cannot stop chains. Words cannot stop hunters." But even as he mocked, the crowd did not laugh with him. Instead, the whispers grew louder, sharper, more dangerous. What if words are stronger than chains? What if names are stronger than gold? The human heard the whispers, and though he did not smile, his heart grew steadier. He had not only spoken to save the mother and her child, he had planted something into the minds of all who listened, and once planted, such a seed could not easily be uprooted. The auctioneer slammed his fist on the podium, his voice shaking. "Then so be it, let all of you remember, this human has cursed himself. He will be hunted, he will fall, and the woman and her brat with him." But the human did not flinch, his voice calm. "Let them come." The mother's eyes widened because she realized he was not only defending them, he was challenging the entire system. And though fear clawed at her chest, hope rose higher still, because maybe, just maybe, this was not only her salvation, but the start of something greater. The boy tugged her hand, whispering, "Mama, they are afraid of him." She looked around, and indeed, she saw fear in the eyes of the merchants, the guards, even the auctioneer. They were afraid of one human, not because of his weapons, not because of his strength, but because of his vow. The whispers of rebellion grew, quiet but unstoppable. They traveled through the crowd, into the streets, into the shadows where slaves waited, into the ears of merchants who pretended not to listen. The story was already escaping the market, already taking wing like a bird that could not be caught. And though none knew it yet, the act of giving a last name had lit a spark that could set fire to chains across the galaxy. The auctioneer screamed again for order, but his words were hollow, powerless. The human turned at last, extending his hand once more to the mother, and this time, she took it without hesitation. Together they stepped down from the stage, the child between them. The crowd parted as they walked, some glaring, some whispering, some silently admiring, and as they passed, the whispers followed. A name instead of chains, a family instead of property. What if it could be us? The market had not fallen yet, but it had cracked. The human knew it, the mother knew it, the crowd knew it, and though hunters might rise, though laws might strike, though dangers might wait in every shadow, the first rebellion had already begun. Not with armies, not with weapons, but with a single name. And the galaxy, restless and watching, would never be the same again. The market was left behind, but its whispers followed them into the night. The human led the mother and her child through narrow alleys, through streets where Shadows watched from every corner. The city was a maze of neon lights and rusted metal, ships rising like towers, smoke curling into the sky. Everywhere, eyes turned to watch them, some curious, some hateful, some afraid. For word had already spread. One human had defied the market. One human had given a name instead of chains. The mother walked with her child close, her steps unsteady but her spirit stronger than before. She wanted to believe in this strange gift, in this strange man, but years of betrayal and pain whispered warnings in her heart. Could she trust him? Could anyone truly keep such a vow? Her child, though, looked at the human with wide eyes filled with a kind of hope she had never seen in him before. The boy's hand gripped hers tightly, but his gaze followed the man, as if he believed safety walked in his shadow. They reached the edge of the city, where the docks stretched wide and ships rested like sleeping beasts. The human led them toward his small vessel, not grand, not strong, but steady, reliable. "This ship is not much," he said quietly, "but it will carry us where we need to go." The mother said nothing, her voice caught between gratitude and doubt. The child whispered, "It looks safe, Mama," and she only nodded, though her heart still trembled, but safety was not so easily won. From the shadows, others watched, raiders with hungry eyes. They had heard the story too. They had seen the rebellion spark, and they did not see family. They saw opportunity. A mother, a child, and a foolish human, one sneered. "They are alone. They are weak. They are ours." As the human prepared the ship, the attack came swift and sharp. Figures rushed from the dark, weapons flashing, voices shouting. The mother pulled her child close, shielding him with her body, her heart racing. The human turned, his eyes calm but fierce, his hands steady as he drew his weapon. He fired warning shots, his voice strong. "Stay back!" But the raiders only laughed. "You gave a name, human, but names do not stop blades." The mother's fear rose like a storm. Was this the moment where his promise would break, where they would be taken again? Her child cried out, "Mama!" And she held him tighter, whispering, "Do not let go, no matter what." But then she saw him, the human, standing like a wall between them and danger. He did not move back. He did not falter. He stood firm, his voice sharp as steel. "She is my family now. You will not touch her." The raiders sneered, circling closer, but something in his stance made them hesitate. He was only one man, yet he carried himself as though he bore an army at his back. The mother watched in awe, because though she feared, she also saw his vow alive in his actions. He was not only words, he was shield, he was strength. The child peered from behind her, whispering, "Mama, he is fighting for us." And she could only nod, her heart breaking open with a mix of fear and wonder. The fight came swift, weapons clashing, sparks flying. The human fought with skill, not wild rage, but calm precision. Each move to protect, each strike to defend. The mother pulled her child behind cover, her hands trembling, but her eyes never leaving him. Every time he staggered, her breath caught. Every time he stood again, her heart surged. The raiders pressed harder, but one by one they fell back, not broken, but shaken, because this was no ordinary man. This was someone who fought not for gain, but for family. Finally, the raiders fled into the night, their voices bitter, their threats echoing. This is not the end, human. You cannot fight us all. The galaxy will come for you. The human lowered his weapon, his chest heaving, his body marked with bruises but still standing. He turned to the mother and her child, his voice steady. Are you hurt? The mother shook her head, tears in her eyes, unable to speak. The child ran forward, wrapping his small arms around the human's leg, whispering, You kept your promise. The human knelt, placing a gentle hand on the boy's head. I will always keep it, he said softly, no matter what comes. The mother's heart trembled, her doubts shaken, her walls cracking. She whispered, her voice breaking, Why risk your life for us? You could have walked away. He looked at her, his gaze steady. Because once you carry my name, you are no longer strangers. You are family, and I do not abandon family. Those words struck her deeper than any blade. She had been abandoned by many, betrayed by more, left behind countless times. But this man, this human, spoke with a certainty she had never known. Her child looked up at her, smiling through tears. Mama, we are safe now. And for the first time, she almost believed it. The ship lifted into the night sky, engines humming, leaving the city and its cruel market behind. But in the mother's heart, a storm still raged. Her trust was fragile, her faith unsteady, but her hope stronger than it had ever been. The boy slept against her side, his small smile peaceful. And as she watched the human guide the ship through the stars, she whispered silently to herself, Maybe his vow is real. Maybe his name can truly protect us. Yet outside, danger still stirred. The raiders were not gone. The market was not silent. The hunters were already watching. Their journey would not be easy. Their bond would be tested again and again. But the first battle had been fought, and they had not fallen. The mother knew now that she was no longer alone, and though the road ahead was full of fire, she carried her child and her new name with strength. For together, they were not prey anymore. They were family. The ship sailed through the endless dark of space, leaving behind the city, the market, and the cruel laughter of those who had mocked them. Inside the vessel, silence filled the air, not heavy with despair as before, but soft, uncertain, carrying the fragile weight of new beginnings. The mother sat with her child pressed close, her hand stroking his hair as he slept, his small body finally resting without fear. For the first time since his birth, he did not dream of chains, but of stars, of freedom, of a name that was his to keep. The human guided the ship with steady hands, his eyes fixed on the horizon of stars. He said nothing at first, letting them rest, letting them breathe. But inside him burned a quiet fire, the knowledge that what he had done could not be undone. He had defied a system older than himself. He had broken a silence others feared to touch. And now, both his life and theirs would never be the same. The mother finally spoke, her voice low, careful not to wake the child. You risked everything for us, and yet you do not even know my true name. The human turned, his gaze soft but steady. Names do not need to be known to be honored. She swallowed hard, her eyes glistening. All my life, my name brought me pain. It was shouted by masters, whispered by hunters, forgotten by those who left me. But tonight, when you gave me yours, I felt something I thought was gone. The human tilted his head slightly. And what was that? She breathed slowly, her chest trembling. I felt alive. Her child stirred in his sleep, murmuring softly, his lips forming the sound of the human's name. The mother smiled faintly, brushing his hair from his face. He already accepts it, she whispered. He already believes we belong. The human's lips curved in the faintest smile. Then perhaps he sees the truth faster than either of us. But peace was never without shadow. Beyond the stars, hunters stirred, carrying the orders of merchants and masters who would not forgive such defiance. Messages had already been sent, warnings already spread. The human who gave a name instead of chains was now marked. Some wanted him dead, some wanted him captured, some wanted him silenced. Yet none could ignore him, because his story was already a spark, and sparks carried fire. The mother felt the weight of this, her heart caught between fear and hope. She turned to him, whispering, They will chase us, they will not rest. You have tied yourself to our fate, and now they will come for you too. The human's eyes did not waver. Let them come. I would rather fight for something true than live safe in lies. Her chest ached at his words, because they were not spoken with arrogance, but with quiet certainty, and that certainty gave her strength. The child awoke, blinking sleepily, looking at them both. Where are we going, Mama? He asked, his small voice curious. The mother hesitated, then looked to the human. He answered gently, "We are going forward to a place where you will not be bought or sold, where you will carry your name with pride." The boy smiled, his eyes bright. "Then I want to see it." And in that moment, the future did not seem so far. As days passed, the bond between them grew. The mother, once silent and guarded, began to laugh again, soft at first, then stronger. Her child, once timid and afraid, began to explore the ship, asking questions, dreaming aloud. And the human, once wandering alone, now found himself with family by his side. They ate together, they traveled together, they shared stories beneath the glow of distant stars, and with every passing day, their lives braided tighter, no longer strangers, but kin. But beyond their small vessel, the whispers spread faster than any ship could fly. Across ports, across colonies, across worlds, the tale was told. Of a broken alien mother no one would claim, until a human gave her his last name. Some mocked it, calling it madness, calling it weakness. But others listened with hearts stirred. Slaves whispered it in chains. Merchants feared it in silence. Children dreamed of it in the dark. And slowly, quietly, rebellion found a new language, not of swords or blood, but of belonging, of family, of names. The mother finally gathered the courage to speak her truth. One night, as stars drifted past, she told the human her real name, the name given at her birth, the name buried under years of pain. He listened with respect, speaking it aloud once, then nodding. "It is a strong name," he said. "It is yours, and it always will be. But now it carries mine beside it, and together they will not be broken." Her eyes filled with tears, and for the first time, they were not tears of sorrow, but of peace. The child climbed onto her lap, his small hands holding hers, his eyes bright. "Mama," he whispered, "we are not slaves anymore." She pressed her forehead to his, whispering, "No, my son, we are family." The human placed his hand gently on both their shoulders, his voice low but firm. "From this day forward, wherever we go, whatever comes, you will never be alone." And so their story did not end in chains, but in legacy. Not a legacy written in gold or power, but in names carried with honor. The galaxy would remember them, not because they were mighty, not because they were rulers, but because they were proof that even in the darkest markets, hope could be born. A human gave a name, and in that act, he gave more than freedom. He gave love, he gave belonging, he gave a new beginning. The mother lifted her head high, her child smiling at her side, the human steady at her back. Together they walked into the future, into the unknown, but not into fear, for their story had already become legend, the legend of a broken alien mother, her brave child, and the human who gave them his last name, a legend that whispered to every corner of the stars, that chains could be broken, that family could be chosen, that even in the silence of space, love was stronger than law, and that a single name could change the galaxy.